Hello, my name is Allison Carmen, and welcome to my podcast, 10 Minutes to Less Suffering. And the name of today's podcast is Finding More Understanding in Our Relationships. And the other day, I spoke to my friend who was telling me a story about a situation she just had with her husband. My friend works very hard as a consultant, so she gets paid by the hour. Because she works for herself, she's always thinking about the hours she works, she gets paid, and the hours she chooses not to work so she could be with family and friends and her kids. And she came home the other day and found out her husband had purchased a lot of big items for the house. And she got very upset because they discussed that they were going to wait until later in the year when these items were on sale. And she felt a lot of anger within her. And she decided not to approach her husband because she really wanted to sit with it for a while. And we all know what this is like when we have a conflict with someone that we're close to, when they do something against what we discussed, or they do something that makes us not feel loved. And that was her initial feeling, like, I don't feel loved right now because I'm working and he knows that I'm working all the time. He doesn't work as much as me. He doesn't love me. But as she spent time thinking about it, she realized that this has to do with her husband's relationship with money and his perspective on things. You know, he believes that you should live for now and you should enjoy your life. And he had a different upbringing than she had. And so as she pulled away from it a little bit, she realized that it really wasn't about whether he loved her or not. It was really about how it made her feel. And I think that's where we kind of have a lot of difficulties in our relationship, because when someone does something to us, we always make it about the other person when we communicate. You did this to me. You don't love me. You don't care about me. And then all of a sudden you're in a battle with somebody because they have their perspective and you have yours. And yet my friend decided something different. My friend decided after a couple of days, she went to her husband and she really spent the time understanding how she felt. And she came to him and said, this doesn't make me feel safe. It doesn't make me feel safe because when you spend this money, I feel like I'm not going to be able to work enough to afford our lives. And then I start to feel shaky. And at first, he was defensive, but then he was able to understand that his actions were making her feel a certain way. Because he's in a relationship, he has a choice to collaborate with his partner and to want his partner to feel safe. And so they came to this beautiful understanding that they wouldn't have gotten to had she made it about what he did to her. Your perspective's wrong. The way you want to live your life is wrong. You don't love me because you did that. How often do we all do that to each other? Always judging who the other person is, when it's a more peaceful way to go is really to talk about how a situation makes us feel. And then the other person has the opportunity to come forward or not. And they also have an opportunity to understand us. If we're busy telling them who they are and what they did, they're not going to hear us the same way as if we're expressing our feelings to understand how we operate and reach a higher level to how we could communicate better. And we can't always help people for what they're feeling, because sometimes their feelings might be too irrational for us, or maybe they're asking too much of us. So it's not like we're always going to have to cater to other people's feelings, because sometimes it just doesn't work. So that's not what this is about, but it's about helping to understand the people around you and helping them understand you. Deep down, we all want to be understood. And yes, we need to understand ourselves first. But life is so much deeper and more meaningful when we're all communicating with each other with kindness and understanding. And I find for me, when I can understand where someone's coming from, there's more of a chance that we will find peace with each other. And again, sometimes you're not going to get there. But think about that. Think about all the arguments you have with people in your life and how easily you get offended and you don't feel loved and you don't feel cared for. What happens if we all, instead of attacking each other, if we just really let people know how we feel? And then we give someone the opportunity to love us or not, to understand us or not, to give us kindness because we need it in that moment, to give us compassion. But we're always thinking everybody knows what we're talking about, and they don't. And I think that's what happens. It's like we're so busy expecting people to be who we think they should be. You should act like this, and you should do this, and you should know better. You know me by now. And if my friend cared about me, she wouldn't have said that. She wouldn't have done that. And all of a sudden, all these relationships are getting so tense. And there's so much misunderstanding. And what's also interesting is sometimes these relationships start to accumulate a level of disgust. Meaning that the person that you're in a relationship with looks at you all the time and is thinking, well, she doesn't love me. She doesn't love me. That action, she doesn't love me. And the other person's not even understanding. And so the relationship becomes so tense because the person that's filled with disgust can never look at any of your actions in a neutral or positive way. So you're just really, the relationship is leading towards destruction because there's never this moment where you're able to clear the slate because everybody's just coming from their own perspective. And remember, perspective is from your childhood. Perspective is from your trauma. Perspective is from your life experiences. We don't need our partners to see the world the way we see it. We don't need our partners to value things the way we value them. What we need our partners to do is understand our feelings. And we need to understand them. And this goes with friends and family and coworkers. I've had so many amazing experiences at work when myself and a coworker have taken the time to get past what was happening and really talk about how we made the other person feel. When you start to do that, often you find that you're more on the same page than you think. You both have the same goal. You both want work to get done. But how someone spoke to you made you feel a certain way. And then you shut down. And then when you shut down, you weren't as open towards that person and they shut down. And really, we're all just wounded and we're not realizing that the other person didn't know. And I've had these conversations many times over the last couple of years. And it's really how I think that we should all think about moving forward. That we should kind of let our guard down a little bit and realize that everybody has their own opinion. Everyone has their own perspective. And perhaps our expectations of who we think people should be is just setting us up for failure. And we could even see when someone's angry or upset. We could even go forward and say, how did I make you feel? And maybe we could accept that we're all different. But really look more towards the core. Often there's an injury. There's a wound. There's someone's feeling a certain way. And you have no idea. Because you think you're walking around trying to make everything good, that you have good intentions, you have good values, so therefore you could do nothing wrong. But we could never know what someone else is thinking unless they tell us. And we could never know what someone else is thinking unless they understand themselves. So we need to also go back to ourselves and look beyond what's happening and look to see how we're feeling in a certain situation. And we might not always share it, and that's okay too. And we might not be able to cater to people's feelings. That's okay too. But at least we tried. At least we put love first, understanding first, caring first. And we really tried to make the most of our relationships. It's really very difficult to cultivate goodness between people when bad things are accumulating, when misunderstandings are accumulating, when disgust is accumulating. Imagine telling someone how you feel and them acknowledging it and working with you in your relationship to make sure that you feel safe, to make sure you feel loved, to maybe alter their behavior because they want you to feel more comfortable. To me, that feels like being loved. It actually feels like being understood. And it feels kind, and it feels sweet, and it feels gentle. And I think we all want that kind, sweet, and gentle love. And we all deserve it. We deserve to give it to ourselves. And the people in our lives deserve that we give it to them. So maybe it's just a new way of thinking, a new awareness of the conflicts that we have in life and how we can go about it. And perhaps to not get so offended the minute something happens. Yes, if we feel angry, we have to process our anger. If we feel hurt, if we feel sad, but perhaps take a step back and think about someone could have a different perspective than I have. Maybe they're not acting against me. Maybe there's something here I'm not seeing. And maybe if I tell them how they're making me feel in this situation, we have a shot of reaching a deeper level of understanding, more joy, more love, and then we won't be accumulating this disappointment with each other. And love could be reborn again every minute. Thank you for listening to this podcast today. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you could email me at allison@allisoncarmen.com. If you'd like to buy my books, The Gift of Maybe or Year Without Men, they're available at all major bookstores and online retailers. And if you like this podcast, you could subscribe and leave a comment.